we were talking about this before the show, and we're going to get to this conversation later. We were talking because Myles Garrett, he's a very confident guy, as we all know. And when we talk about the NFL Top 100, he says he should be number one on the list. Now, I don't even think he's number one on the Browns because if I were – now, again, obviously quarterback is more important than pass rusher or running back. But if you said to me personally, who is the best player on the Browns, my answer would be Nick Chubb. I would have Myles 2. I would have Deshaun Watson 3. I would have Bitonio 4. Kareem Hunt 5. Denzel Ward 6. And then probably Wyatt Teller and Amari Cooper 7 and 8. I don't know. You don't need to go that deep. But what do you think? Who is, again, I know Deshaun Watson.
Did we have this conversation?
Off the air, on the air, we did. Maybe a while ago.
I don't know.
We weren't all at dinner with you guys.
Maybe.
It was over ice cream.
No, because I'll bring Nico back into this. We were on a trip. We had gone to Hershey Park and we're driving home, which is, 3.5 hours or so. And we're in the car and Nico asks us while his sister is sleeping, can you tell me the best player on every team? Mm-hmm. And so Matt and I were running through every team and, some we disagreed on, like the Steelers, Matt and I disagreed. The Browns.
What did you guys say? Wait a second. What did you guys say?
Well, Matt said for the Steelers, TJ Watt, and I said Cam Hayward.
Oh, you're right.
Thank you.
All right, well,
but in any case, when
go
it came to the Browns, Matt and I both simultaneously said Nick Chubb. And so we both agreed that the best player in our minds was Nick Chubb on that team. And then after the fact, I had to think, it's weird I didn't think of Myles Garrett, but it really was Nick Chubb that came to mind first.
Here's why I think Nick Chubb.
I do agree with you. And we didn't have like a heavy discussion about it. I guess if I'd have to think about it right now, I don't know. The pass rusher does affect every play.
Yes.
I love defense. I think defense drives games for sure. But I also think a running back like Nick Chubb is just spectacular and special in so many ways, can do so many different things for you. It's very, very hard to see him contained, much less held down or stopped. I mean, I think that the toughest sledding I've seen him go through the last however many years was that game against the Steelers last year, that 15-10 game, where the Steelers absolutely sold out to stop the run, and Chubb was coming off injury anyway. Other than that, it's just he's so heady, he's so good, he's so hard to stop. It's almost like the only time he's beatable is when he's not on the field. You've heard me scream how many times last year when there's 2 minutes left in the half or the game, just put more put Nick Chubb in. I don't care if the 2-minute offense is the Kareem Hunt offense. I don't disagree with you. Yeah. I don't. I might quibble with you as you get further down the list a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I'm putting Kareem Hunt ahead of Denzel Ward. I don't know that I'm doing that.
Somebody else. I just think statistically Kareem Hunt is not as productive in Cleveland because he's the number 2 running back. But the thing with me, ultimately, that separates, because I think Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb are both elite at their jobs. They're both in that elite class.
Yes.
The difference is, I think and obviously there's more stats for a running back than there is for a pass rusher, but I believe that Nick Chubb is more, even the greatest player, even Tom Brady, doesn't play at an elite level every single game. So there are some games where even the best player ever doesn't play great. I think Nick Chubb is more consistently elite than Myles Garrett is. That's why I have him ahead.
I think that I would agree with you on that one. And then you also think about impact on a game.
Definitely.
I mean, Nick Chubb, if he gets 20 carries and he is controlling the clock and he is moving the offense and he is churning out those yards, and he also does have an ability to be a game breaker. He can change the game with one play.
Right.
Let's go back to that Bengals game last year, right? It was Denzel Ward with that huge pick six, and then, of course, it was that massive Nick Chubb run. I mean, those sorts of plays change a game, and Myles Garrett occasionally does that. Occasionally, right? There's a sack, fumble, maybe touchdown, occasionally there's a sack that ends a drive. But I just think, to your point, Nick Chubb does that more consistently.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
You don't agree?
Okay.
No,
you got Myles ahead of Nick Chubb.
Myles Garrett, to me, is, honestly, if you look at it, he might be the best defensive player that's already ever played for the Browns. Mm-hmm. Already. He's going to break the sack record this year for the Browns.
Right, but that doesn't – I don't disagree, but I don't think that makes him better than Nick Chubb.
Right.
Yeah, but do you think Aaron Donald is better than Myles Garrett?
Yes.
Definitely. Nobody's better
Now,
than
wait,
him.
You also remember our best receivers of Brown's history list,
yeah,
too.
not very
It doesn't always mean something just because he's the best one at
Hang
that
on.
position.
Exactly.
So you think Myles Garrett's better than Nick Chubb?
Yes.
But you also said Nick Chubb is better than Emmitt Smith.
On raw skills, yes, I do.
Yeah, Aditi, I want you to hear this.
On raw,
G said that
on raw ability,
Nick Chubb is better than the greatest running back
Oh, no,
by
no, no.
yardage
Yardage.
in the history of the game.
And mathematically,
Nick
that
Chubb is
also
better.
means that he thinks that Myles Garrett is a better football player than Emmitt Smith as well.
No. Emmitt Smith physically is not the most gifted running back, right? Emmitt Smith had a great offensive line, a great team, and he had longevity. You can't coach that. Longevity counts for something. However, if you line Emmitt Smith up and you line Nick Chubb up, and you said, all right, which one of those people have more agility, who's faster, who breaks more tackles, all these different things. You'd be hard pressed to find one trait that you would say Emmitt Smith has over Nick Chubb. Now, does that mean that he's just overall, according to the pantheon of time, better than Emmitt Smith? No, he got to prove it and he got to do it. But if you ask me physically, I would take Nick Chubb. Now when you talk about Myles Garrett, for me, I think the reason why I would say this now, I love Nick Chubb because I just said he's better than Emmitt Smith. Now, when you talk about the effectiveness of a play, right? Myles Garrett has the ability to affect the game in multiple ways. He's an underrated run stopper. He already has the lead in sacks. So you say, look at 16 sacks. He also has 17, 18. These are just tackles for loss above and beyond that.
Right.
So my thing is, if you have Myles Garrett and you say who's going to be more pivotal and if the Browns can make the playoffs, which one would be more important?
Well,
If
but
Nick
by
Chubb
that question, Deshaun Watson, when he plays, would be number one. But I wasn't looking at it that way.
Oh,
from that
well, okay.
perspective,
So if
personally.
Myles Garrett has a crazy for 11 games and he has 12 sacks in those 11, 13 sacks, that's gonna impact everything. Nick Chubb, yes, he's gonna impact it, but you still have Kareem Hunt and some other things. I think it's very close, but I would take the defensive end because I think a defensive end is more impactful than a running back. Not necessarily the fact that Nick Chubb isn't a great player.
I was taking the positional importance out of it for me.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I mean, honestly, with all of us, we're splitting hairs.
Yeah,
debating
very-
who's better between Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like the, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. Some teams, it's very obvious who the best player is, and others, I think, to your point, you are just splitting hairs in some ways. But isn't
Joe
it
Burrow
nice?
or JaMarr Chase?
Oh.
What?
Well, you have to take Burrow. Burrow makes everybody better.
No, but if we're taking positional importance out of it, is Joe Burrow a better quarterback than JaMarr Chase as a wide receiver?
JaMarr Chase is a top 6 receiver. Joe Burrow is a top 7 quarterback. You're literally splitting.
Okay, here's the thing, guys, though. This is what the magic of football is. To G's point about Emmitt Smith and everything that he everyone that he played with and the offense that he played in, how much does that add to who he is? When you were talking about Emmitt Smith, I'm sitting there thinking about Le'Veon Bell. For a period of time, for about 5 years, Le'Veon Bell was considered one of the top, 2 or 3 running backs in the NFL.
Doubt.
But how much of that was because he was behind a veteran, mature, seasoned offensive line that was arguably one of the top 2 lines in the NFL that knew how to block for his style? How much of that was Antonio Brown, the best receiver on the planet, was drawing double and triple teams? How much of that was Ben Roethlisberger, a future Hall of Fame quarterback, having this amazing chemistry with Antonio Brown, and then also Juju Smith-Schuster, and then also for a period of time, Martavis Bryant, and everything that was going on? I mean, Le'Veon, yes, he sat out a year, and he got a little heavier, but he goes to the Jets, and he's not even average. He's below average.
It's awful.
So is Le'Veon really that great a running back? Or was he in the most amazing situation for 5 years that we thought he was a top 3 running back? Now, JaMarr Chase is a top 10 receiver, sure, regardless. But how much is JaMarr Chase helped by the fact that he's playing with a guy that he's already put 5 years in with, that he's been repping with for 5 years that he's got unbelievable chemistry with? How much is JaMarr Chase helped by T. Higgins out there, who arguably is the number one receiver on his own? Remember, JaMarr Chase went quiet for a good chunk of time last year. Defenses started playing him a little bit differently. He couldn't make do. All of a sudden, T. Higgins has a string of 100-yard games. And oh, by the way, Tyler Boyd had caught more passes in a row than anybody else in the NFL out of the slot last year. There was a period of time last year, it was probably like November-ish, all three of those receivers had 60-something catches. And I remember talking about this with Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, and he said that was the thing that he was most proud of, is that Joe Burrow wasn't just feeding JaMarr Chase, he was actually feeding the open man. All three of them had the same number of receptions. Even though, of course, Chase had more targets, it was still the way that Burrow sees the field, the way that Burrow diagnoses who's open, the way Burrow can look guys open. So I don't think JaMarr Chase, playing with Ben Roethlisberger last year, puts up the same numbers and is the same receiver.
No,
I think it really matters who he's playing with. And so I'd argue, and I'd also argue that Joe Burrow made everybody better.
I do agree, but Joe, if they had drafted Penei Sewell instead of JaMarr Chase, I don't think the Bengals offense would have been as good either.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point, because the Bengals offensive line was horrific, and still this offense did what it did.
Yeah.
By the way,
in the Ravens, Lamar Jackson clearly the best guy.
Go
ahead.
We have another enormous Browns preseason game coming up, and we're going to get to see Jacoby Brissett for the first time. Any predictions as far as what we might see from him, and what are you going to be looking for out of him in particular?
Well, I think that they'll do their best to keep him safe, right? I think that him being out there is more about the game operation, about having the headset helmet on having the plays sent in, on managing the huddle. We know that the Bears are playing their starters for a full half and that they'll be going full go. So I think that you'll probably see more ball control, more, sort of steadiness, making sure that everything is clean as opposed to let's light it up. I mean, but everybody wants to score. You feel good on that. So I don't know. I actually do have to jump because we have our production meeting shortly, and I'll probably learn a little bit more there. Or at least I hope we learn a little bit more. We're talking to Jacoby Brissett and Amari Cooper.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Aditi, have a great weekend. Yeah. We will talk to you soon. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Aditi.
Yes. Make sure you watch, and any feedback you have or any tips you have for my last preseason sideline.
I'm taking notes. Aditi.
All right, well, send them to me in real time so I can fix it. Just like the Surface tablet. I want to fix it for the next drive.
All over it.
All right.
I did text Aditi one note, and she never got back to me during the first game, though, so be careful.
She just threw that out right now. She wasn't talking about the first game.
I can't remember. I vaguely remember what it was. Remind me, what was it?
Is John Doss's voice real? Which it turned out it is.
Oh.
So let me bring that up real quick before
Let
you go.
her go.
She's got to go.
Gotta go? Can I talk
No,
about
it's
John
actually
Doss?
the meeting's 12:15, so it's okay.
Okay. Do you guys know John Doss at all?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So before I met John, I said the same thing as Mike. There's no way that guy's got a real voice. That's he's putting on like a fake voice. And then I met him in person, and I was like taken aback. Like, that's actually how he talks. So for those who don't know, and Aditi knows, he's got the most bizarre in a good way, but like bizarre voices you've ever heard.
But you know what's funny, Bull, is that, Adam, a lot of people like your voice. And Matt, my husband, when we drove away from your house, made the point of saying, he's got such a great voice. He's got such a great voice. Yeah.
I do a
But
Bull
my
voice all
voice
the
doesn't
time.
sound fake. Like, his voice sounds like he's putting it on.
What's so great about Bull's voice?
Right.
It's just that New York.
I've got a sexy voice, Jason. I've got a
Feels
high
like-
voice. Nobody wants to hear you.
Sounds like a Rottweiler.
Bye, Aditi.
Thanks, Aditi.
I know.
Yeah.
You'd be great as a